There's a woman in the fourth chapter of the second book of Kings who appears without introduction and is never named, acts with extraordinary composure throughout one of the most devastating experiences a parent can have, and is among the most psychologically complete figures in all of the historical books. She is called only the Shunammite, a woman of Shunem, a town in the valley of Jezreel. And her story is one I want to read carefully today, because almost everything in it rewards the kind of attention that Donald Winnicott can help us bring to it. The story begins with an act of hospitality. Elisha the prophet passes through Shunem regularly, and the Shunammite woman presses him to eat with her. He comes whenever he passes through. And then she says to her husband, I know that this is a holy man of God who passes by us regularly. Let's make a small room on the roof and put a bed, table, chair, and a lamp there for him so that he can stay there whenever he comes to us. A room of his own, built on the roof of her house, furnished for his needs, ready for whenever he comes. Winnicott spent his career thinking about what it means to provide the right environment for another person's being. The holding environment, the term he coined for the responsive, attuned, reliable care that makes growth and genuine selfhood possible, is not a grand gesture. It is steady presence, consistent availability, the provision of what is needed before the need is urgently expressed. The Shunammite woman does not wait for Elisha to ask for anything. She sees that he passes regularly, observes that he is holy, builds a room, furnishes it, and leaves it ready. This is holding in Winnicott's sense, the anticipatory provision of an environment in which another person can simply be, without having to manage or ask or negotiate for what they need. Elisha is moved by the provision and wants to reciprocate. He asks his servant Gehazi what can be done for her. What does she need? Could a word be spoken on her behalf to the king or to the commander of the army? She says, I live among my own people. This is one of those sentences that is short enough to pass quickly and profound enough to carry an entire psychology. I live among my own people. I have what I need. I am embedded in a community. I am not lacking. I do not require your patronage or your political connections. I am, in myself, complete. Winnicott would read this as a statement of the most fundamental kind about the woman's psychological constitution. She has, in his terms, what he called the capacity to be, the ability to exist in one's own experience without needing to perform for others, without restlessly seeking something from outside to fill a felt deficiency. She is not managing, she is not performing the role of the grateful recipient in hopes of a benefit. She simply lives among her own people, and it is enough. This capacity, the capacity to be, rather than to do or to seek or to acquire, was for Winnicott the foundation of genuine psychological health. It is built in the earliest environment. The infant who was held reliably enough, responded to attuned enough, given the consistent experience of a world that is fundamentally good enough, develops an internal steadiness that is prior to and independent of external provision. The Shunammite woman has this steadiness. She built a room for the prophet not to get something back, but because it was the right thing to do, and she had the means to do it. Gehazi notices what the woman herself has not said. She has no son, and her husband is old. Elisha calls her, and she stands in the doorway. And he says, At this season, when the time comes around, you shall embrace a son. She says, No, my lord, man of God, do not lie to your servant. The protest is striking. She does not say, How wonderful. She does not say, Thank you. She says, Do not lie to me. Do not raise my hopes for something I cannot expect. Winnicott would find in this response something that is psychologically very honest and very rare. The self-sufficient person, the person who has genuinely made peace with the life they have, who does not live from deficiency, is not easily destabilized by the promise of more, but neither are they insulated from the particular grief of a door that has been closed so long they have stopped looking at it. The Shunammite woman has made her peace. She does not want it undone by a promise that cannot be kept. But the child comes. The text tells us simply the woman conceived and bore a son at that season the following year, as Elisha had said to her. And then we skip forward in a single sentence to the boy being older, going out to his father and among the reapers, complaining of his head being carried back to his mother. The boy sits on his mother's knee until noon, and then he dies. What the Shunammite woman does next is one of the most controlled and most purposeful responses to catastrophic loss anywhere in the Bible. She goes up to the room on the roof, the room she built, the room where Elisha stays, and lays the child on the prophet's bed, shuts the door behind her, and goes out. She does not cry out. She does not call to her husband. She does not collapse. She goes directly to the source of the crisis, the prophet who gave her the child, and she goes with extraordinary speed. She says to her husband, "Please send me one of the servants and one of the donkeys so I can go quickly to the man of God and come back." Her husband says, "Why go to him today? It is not the new moon or the Sabbath." She says, "I will be well." She rides fast, and when Gehazi comes out to meet her and asks, "Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child?" she says, "It is well." Winnicott would be particularly attentive to this word, shalom, "it is well," said by the woman whose child has just died on her knee. She is not lying, actually. She is holding the reality of what has happened inside herself when she moves towards the only person who can address it. She has not told the husband the child is dead. She has not wept in the road. She has said it is well and ridden as fast as she can. This is what Winnicott called the capacity to hold, not just the capacity to provide a holding environment for others, but the internal capacity to hold one's own experience, to contain what is unbearable, long enough to do what needs to be done. The person who has been genuinely held, whose early environment gave them the internal steadiness that makes genuine selfhood possible, has this capacity available in extremity. The Shunammite woman does not fragment under the weight of the impossible thing that has happened. She holds it and she rides. When she reaches Elisha at Mount Carmel, she falls at his feet. Gehazi comes forward to push her away. She is clutching at the prophet's feet. She is in an undignified distress. And Elisha says to Gehazi, "Leave her alone, for she is in bitter distress." She is in bitter distress. The Hebrew is mar nefesh la. Her soul is bitter to her. And Elisha does not pretend this is not the case. He does not reach for reassurance or comfort or distance. He says, she is in bitter distress and she needs to speak. She says to him, "Did I ask my Lord for a son? Did I not say, 'Do not mislead me'?" This is the return of the original protest. I told you not to raise my hopes. I told you not to give me what I could not keep. I had made my peace with what my life was, and you broke that peace, and now this. She is not angry at God abstractly. She is angry at the prophet who brought her into a story she did not choose. The son she did not ask for is the son who died on her knee, and she is holding the prophet responsible. Winnicott understood this quality of honest, directed grievance, the capacity to address one's distress to the person or source most relevant to it, without generalizing into helplessness or dissolving into formlessness, as itself a sign of psychological health. The person who can say precisely where it hurts and say it to the person who needs to hear it has maintained their coherence under pressure. The Shunammite woman knows exactly what she is feeling and exactly who to say it to. Elisha sends Gehazi ahead with his staff. Lay it on the boy's face. But the woman will not leave. She says, "As the Lord lives and as you yourself live, I will not leave you." And Elisha comes with her. Gehazi has gone ahead and laid the staff on the boy. Nothing happened. He comes back to meet them and says, The child is not awakened. Elisha goes into the house, into the room, closes the door, just the two of them, the prophet and the dead child. He prays. He stretches himself over the child, mouth to mouth, eyes to eyes, hands to hands, and the child's flesh grows warm. Elisha gets up, walks back and forth, goes back, stretches over the child again. The child sneezes 7 times and opens his eyes. Elisha calls Gehazi. Gehazi calls the woman. She comes in. Elisha says, "Pick up your son." She falls at his feet, bowing to the ground, and she picks up her son and goes out. There is no speech at the end, no prayer, no declaration, no theology. She bows and she picks up her son and goes out. The Shunammite woman ends the story the same way as she moved through it, with composure, with directness, with the economy of the person who does not say more than needs to be said. Winnicott wrote about what he called the use of an object, the capacity of the developing self to encounter another person as genuinely real, genuinely separate, genuinely other, not as a projection or a mirror, but as a distinct entity who can be impacted, addressed, and demanded of. The person who has been adequately held in their development can use relationships in this way, can lean on them, struggle with them, make demands of them, and trust that the relationship will survive the demand. The Shunammite woman uses Elisha. She builds him a room. She writes to him in grief. She falls at his feet. She holds him responsible. She refuses to leave without him. And he comes. The relationship holds. The son is returned. She built a room for a holy man who passed by. She furnished it and left it ready. She did not ask for anything, and she received what she could not have imagined twice. It is well. She picks up her son and goes out.